College basketball in North Carolina is more than just a game.
North Carolina State has captured their second NCAA championship.
College basketball is the civic religion of the state of North Carolina.
Rivalries in the state run deep, and its arenas are decorated with championship banners spanning decades.
And the fairy tale ride for the Tar Heels continues. And Coach K's legendary career has come to a close.
But in its long history of legendary matchups, the most important game to ever be played in North Carolina was one that was kept a secret for half a century.
The secret game was absolutely remarkable, and it should never have happened.
I'm Anissa Khalifa. This is The Broadside, where we tell stories from our home at the crossroads of the South. This week, Charlie Shelton Ormond explores how a group of players risked their lives to play one game that changed the sport forever.
I mean, it was out of time. It happened way before it should have happened. It's really a shining lost moment in the history of the game.
Historian and writer Scott Ellsworth never meant to find out about the secret game. Back in the mid-1990s, he was looking for the subject of his next book. And as a college basketball fan, Scott set his sights on a memorable Final Four matchup. To him, the 1957 tournament had just about everything. Massive crowds, a nail-biting triple overtime final, and it featured one of the greatest players to ever play the game, Wilt Chamberlain. Scott felt pretty good about the project.
And then I made my mistake. I went to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts to do some research.
And it was here that Scott met a man who would change his life.
This elderly African-American gentleman sidles up to me, and he introduces himself. He says his name is John McClendon.
That's Coach John McClendon, a trailblazer in the sport. And even though he had a loose connection to the 57 Final Four, Scott jumped at the chance to interview McClendon about his long career as a coach. And at the end of their chat inside McClendon's home, the coach fetched a special piece of paper with a remarkable resume.
And at the top it says, Racial Firsts in Basketball That I've Been Involved With by John B. McClendon Jr. And it's an amazing list. But at the top it says 1944, first integrated college basketball game in the South, North Carolina College for Negroes against what he said was the Duke Navy Medical School team. And I'm looking at this thing, and he's yammering on. I'm saying, well, this guy sure can't type because it can't be 1944. That's just way too early. Hey, Coach, what's the deal on this game? And then he starts describing the game and his players, and it was exactly at that point that all my years, all my work on the history of the 1957 Final Four was torpedoed forever to sink beneath the waves, and I was on the chase of this new story.
So Scott got to digging. What was this mysterious matchup in Durham, North Carolina? And how come he'd never heard about it before?
This was a very dangerous event. It was essentially illegal, but it was an extremely dangerous event that these two teams put together. This is 1944. This is 11 years before Rosa Parks sits down and launches the Montgomery bus boycott, before anybody had ever heard of Martin Luther King. It's 20 years before the Selma to Montgomery march.
And for this to happen in Durham is a pretty big deal, right? Can you describe what the city was like in 1944?
So Durham in 1944 is a small but a very robust southern city. It's the home of Duke University, and it's also the home of North Carolina College for Negroes,
which today is the HBCU, North Carolina Central University.
But it's also, it's a business center. It's a tobacco town. There are factories that are making cigarettes. It's also a textile mill town as well, too. But it's in the South, and it's a very rigidly segregated city. Durham was interesting, though, because it had a very robust African-American community known as Hayti. So it's a very proud community, but it's a very separate community as well, too. It's also important to remember in those days that if you cross the color line and if you go against the written and unwritten rules of segregation, you can take your life into your hands.
And remember, this was 1944. The United States was in the throes of World War II, which Scott says impacted every aspect of life, including sports.
When the war happens, regular college basketball ceases to exist. The game really becomes on a wartime footing. And what happens is the Department of War, there are all these military basketball teams that are created out of these army bases and whatnot all around the country. They are considered to be regular college basketball teams, and they play everywhere. I know that in 1943, 1944, the University of Arizona didn't play a single college in its schedule. They played a schedule, but they're against, Navy teams, Army teams, Marine teams. And at Duke, you still had the Blue Devils, but a lot of the Blue Devils had been drafted. But you had at the Duke Medical School, which was a hurry-up program to train military doctors for the war. So you had all of these really terrific former college basketball players at the Duke Medical School. You had an All-American, All-Southern Conference, these top players. They played the Duke varsity and they slaughtered them because they were just much better.
At the same time, across town in Durham, there was a new coach at North Carolina College who was making a name for himself.
You have this remarkable new coach in John McClendon, and he's seen the future of basketball. He's creating a new style of play. He's grown up in Kansas, which is one of the centers of basketball. He's imported these players because the local talent is not very good. And he's really found the future of the game. And he creates this juggernaut of a team.
Now, keep in mind, college basketball around this time looked nothing like it does today. No dunking, no three-pointers. It was a slow and methodical sport. But by 1944, the style of play was starting to evolve, thanks to a major rule change.
Right before the war, in 1939, the center jump was eliminated. And the center jump was something where after every scored field goal in a basketball game, play stops, both teams gather again at the center court, and they reenact the opening tip.
After every basket.
After every single field goal that's scored. And as a result, college basketball is an incredibly slow game. There's not any flow. Everything stops. So that gets eliminated. Now you start to have a bit of flow.
But for Coach John McClendon, a bit more flow on the court was only the beginning.
He does 3 different things that nobody had done before.
First, he revolutionized a new play taking hold in the sport, the fast break.
He creates a fast break that's truly a fast break. He got his North Carolina Eagle players to move the ball, inbound the ball, move it from one end of the court to the next, and get a shot off within 2 or 3 seconds. And
wow, that's impressive even for today.
That's impressive by today, but by the standards of that era, nobody did anything like that.
Second, he introduced a completely new way to play defense.
Full court pressure defense. Hounding the inbounds, all that. Nobody had done that before. So he has this game that's going full speed the entire game.
And this is what brought about McClendon's third big idea. A faster game meant constant running.
And he realized, I've got to have players that are in better condition than ever before. Now, nobody is jogging in America in the 1930s. Nobody's going out for runs. That doesn't start till the 1950s and 60s. But McClendon is having his players in their Converse All-Stars shoes running, 3, 4, 5 miles a day out in the cotton and tobacco fields outside of Durham. But what happens is they become the best conditioned basketball team in the country.
Powered by this new way of playing, McClendon's Eagles started to dominate.
And they're just killing everybody. They're scoring 70, 80, 90 points a game. They beat St. Augustine's 119-34. And John McClendon's little North Carolina College for Negroes Eagles becomes the highest scoring basketball team in the world at any level.
Amazing.
And nobody's doing what he's doing.
Nobody was doing it like Coach McClendon. But Scott says nobody outside of their opponents really knew about this elite team in Durham.
Because we don't have television, and the black teams were not allowed to play in either the NCAA tournament or the NIT in those days. So John McClendon has found the future, but there hardly anybody knows about it.
But eventually, word about McClendon's team traveled just down the road to Duke University. And Scott says it was through the two schools' YMCA chapters that the idea of a game was first introduced.
Contact was made by those two groups, and they decide to have joint prayer meetings together. This is very dangerous. This is breaking the color line as well, too. They would get together at night in Hayti on the campus at North Carolina College. And during the course of one of these meetings, some of the members are talking about basketball. And there's sort of well, we got a pretty good basketball team. Oh, yeah, well, we got one too. Well, let's see who's better. So that's where the spark of this idea happens.
How did John McClendon feel about this idea? Is he on board with the game between the two teams?
No, not at all. McClendon at first is opposed to the idea because he realizes how dangerous this is.
So what convinced him then to do this?
Well, they can't play in the NCAA tournament, the NIT. They play in this alleged National Negro College Basketball Championship in New York City, but the game is fixed by gamblers. They lose. But when this game was fixed against Lincoln University, another black team, that just made him so angry. And he had this great team, and there was no place to go, and nobody's going to know about it either. And that's really what pushed him over. He said, okay, we're just going to do it and see what happens. He later told me, he said, a lot of us black coaches just didn't know whether our teams could play with these guys. They're really playing basketball, and he wanted to find out. And so McClendon at that point says, to hell with it, we'll play as well.
The two teams set a date, March 12th, 1944, a Sunday morning tip-off.
They held it on a Sunday morning on purpose when everyone in Durham, including Durham's notorious police force, would all be in church.
So, with the streets deserted, the Duke players traveled undercover across town to meet the Eagles at North Carolina College.
You've got these Duke players who are sort of laying down in their seats. They're nervous about all this. They finally find the gym. They park, and there's this African-American man who's John McClendon. He's got a clipboard welcoming them into the gym, and they sneak quickly inside the gym.
Coach McClendon locked the doors behind him. There'd be absolutely no spectators for this game.
They're about to do something that really goes against everything that they had been taught by their families. They're breaking the great racial taboo of the South. And if you cross the color line, you're going to take your future, your freedom, and your life in your own hands.
With butterflies in their stomachs, the players got into position for the tip-off. The referee blew his whistle, tossed up the ball, and the first integrated basketball game in the South was underway. We'll be right back after a short break.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Hi, I'm pianist Manny X. On my new podcast, Classical Music Happy Hour, my guests and I talk about life and music, and we also like to play games. Is it a composer or is it cheese?
Oh, I know this game.
Knowing Mozart, it's probably all of the above.
It's all of the above. Is this a fake or was this a flop?
Flop.
That's more mistakes than I made in my last recital. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So it's a Sunday morning in Durham, North Carolina, March 1944. And two teams, one all black players, the other all white, are inside a gym at North Carolina College, secretly playing the South's first integrated basketball game. Now, up until now, Coach John McClendon's Eagles from North Carolina College had just about run through whoever they'd played. But historian Scott Ellsworth says this time was much different.
Early on, the game is very stiff, and the butterflies are mainly on McClendon's North Carolina College Eagles. Now, the black players on the team, particularly the Southern black players, they've never played against whites at all. And the white players who are Southern are nervous as well, too. They're breaking tradition, family tradition, way of life.
But the teams eventually loosened up, ironically, after a hard foul between two players.
And it was one of these, fouls where in a schoolyard there might be a fight afterwards, all that, but nothing happens. And so people start to relax a little bit.
Still, the Eagles couldn't quite find their groove, and the Duke team pulled ahead.
The Duke players kill them in the first half. They're just so good. They play a great game. So they're up by 8 points at the first half, and McClendon's sitting there rather dejectedly, going on, well, I guess we're just not up to snuff. Then the second half is going to begin, but a couple things happen. Word starts to filter around on the campus of North Carolina College. Something weird is going on in the gym. And then somebody goes to see what's going on in the gym. The doors are locked, which they normally weren't. And then students start to climb up on these ledges, and they're pulling themselves up to look in and to see what's going on, and they're just dumbfounded seeing their North Carolina College Eagles playing a white team. And word starts to spread, and first there's 5 and then 10 and then 25, and there's 50, 60 North Carolina students now in their Sunday clothes from church that are climbing up looking in, and they can't believe what's going on.
Meanwhile, on the court, the Eagles finally found their footing, in large part thanks to their guard, a North Carolina native named Aubrey Stanley.
He said, I had an epiphany. He said that during the game, I finally realized these guys aren't supermen. They're just men like us. And he just kicks into gear, and he helps to inspire the rest of the Eagles to shake off, any of their jitters and stuff like that. And now they're playing that game that gave them an undefeated season. And not only do they pull ahead of the Duke team, but the league grows 10 points, 20 points, 30 points. And finally, by the end of the game, the North Carolina Eagles win 88-44. And they just destroy Duke in that second half.
But after the Eagles' resounding victory, Scott says something extraordinary happened. Something that was even more transgressive than this planned secret game.
So the game has happened, and the teams are just milling around. People are talking to each other. And the two teams on their own, with McClendon having nothing to do with it, organized their own second game, a skins on shirts game. But they end up dividing the two teams. So now you have the Eagle guard, Aubrey Stanley, is passing to, white Duke players. They play the second game that's even a greater violation of what's going on in the South. And McClendon's just sitting there just watching this, and he doesn't realize it yet, but he's seen the future of basketball. This is what basketball is going to be like. It's not only integrated teams playing, but they're also playing that speeded up game that he's, helped to found and to create. They're playing full court defense. They're playing fast break offense. It's all happening.
After that second spontaneous scrimmage, the two teams had some friendly refreshments together and then called it a day. History had been made, and it was time to go home. And for the most part, they were able to keep the game a secret. For more than 50 years, details of the game were only shared within close circles.
They get away with it. But word gets over to Chapel Hill. And Chapel Hill, of course, is, where UNC is and the Tar Heels are there. But there's an even better, quote, college basketball team in Chapel Hill at the time called the Cloudbusters. And they're for the Naval Air Station team. And these are terrific white players from all over the country and stuff like that. These guys hear about it too. And a lot of these are Northerners who play on it. So what happens all that summer, on Sunday mornings, on weekends, members of the Cloudbusters get into their cars, they find some of the Eagles, and they start having pickup games, sort of secret pickup games in the North Carolina College gym. So, and then as the war goes on and after the war, these Cloudbusters, then they go home to Pittsburgh and to Boston and New York, and they've learned things about this new McClendon way of playing. That game starts to ripple out from there as well.
As his style of play became more popular across the sport, McClendon saw more and more success as a coach. He continued to coach at North Carolina College until the early 1950s, and never stopped changing the game wherever he went.
He goes to Tennessee State, and the NAIA in the 1950s, they decide to allow the black teams to play. He wins, I think, 3 national championships, first black coach to do that. Goes on to Cleveland State, becomes the first black coach at a predominantly white school, becomes the head coach of the Denver Rockets, who later on, joined the NBA. So he has this incredibly illustrious career.
So here in North Carolina, there's a long roster of legendary college basketball coaches.
Absolutely.
Dean Smith at UNC, Coach K at Duke, Jim Valvano, Roy Williams. It feels like John McClendon deserves to be on that list.
Oh, there's no question about it. And he's one of the great fathers of the game. Again, he helps to make the game a constant, fast-moving, always playing game. There's no breaks in it. And he really sees the future of the game.
Though he's not a household name today, John McClendon has received some well-deserved recognition for changing the sport. He was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1979, and then posthumously into the Collegiate Hall of Fame in 2006. But for decades, a pivotal part of McClendon's legacy, the secret game, was largely unknown to the wider world. Even though it wasn't a triple overtime thriller in the Final Four, Scott says the matchup between Duke and North Carolina College was one of the most important games to ever be played, and it carries a legacy that goes beyond the hardwood.
The more I dug into this story, I realized that there was an entire generation of people in the South, mainly Southerners, mainly African Americans, who are fighting this undeclared war against segregation. And this is a lost generation of people who are ahead of their time, and they are really laying the foundations for modern American society. So it's a game about lost heroes. It's a game about how the South was and how some very courageous people helped to pave the way for a much better South that we have today and a much better nation and world that we have today.
Scott Ellsworth is the author of the book, The Secret Game. It's based on an article he wrote for the New York Times in 1996, which was one of the first public acknowledgments that 2 teams in Durham, North Carolina broke the color barrier in 1944. This episode of The Broadside was produced by Charlie Shelton Ormond and edited by Jared Walker. Our executive producer is Wilson Sayre. This week, we featured audio from ESPN. The Broadside is a production of WUNC News in North Carolina and is part of the NPR network. If you have feedback or a story idea, you can email us at broadside@wunc.org. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating, a review, or share it with a friend. I'm Anissa Khalifa. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week.
TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
I swear.
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
This is the mindset.
Free.
This is the mantra.
Free.
This is the mindset.
With movies like Interstellar, Dreamgirls, and Gladiator.
Are you not entertained?
And TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts. Pluto TV is always free. Huzzah! Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.